We're having a good sling of people here signing in. I'll go ahead and keep an eye out for others who may join us today as we get going. Again, welcome to the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader as we look at those 21 qualities outlined by John Maxwell. We're generally having about 70 or 80 people join us online for these live sessions. And then, of course, on the emails, we share out links to the video that you can watch on YouTube if you're unable to attend the class in person. We have about 180 people now enrolled in the class, so thank you and glad you're joining us. Hopefully you're keeping up with the reading and getting, having time to not only do the reading, but also reflect on that reading and what it means to you. And hopefully all those things combined, the input that we're having here contributes to developing yourself as a leader. And that is always an important thing, but especially an important thing right now in the situation that we're confronting. I was reminded today that educators, this is a saying that I heard, educators take something simple and make it complicated, but a communicator takes something complicated and makes it simple. Hopefully that is what we're doing with these online live sessions. That's the intention, is to take what you've read, and it may be complex and abstract, and make it more practical and maybe flesh out some new information. So we want to be more like communicators in that sense. And today, our communicator, our guest, our educator, if I dare say that word after that quote, is Patricia Barrett. Patricia is the County Engagement Specialist in Agriculture and the Environment. She is in Tecumseh, Missouri, up in
Tuscumbia.
I'm sorry. In Miller County. And we were talking earlier about vegetables and things. Well, Patricia leads the Master Gardener program, the Master Naturalist program up in that area, among other duties as well. But today, she is our guest expert on the topic of generosity. Patricia, it is all yours.
Well, thank you, David, very much. I appreciate it. And if you want to start the presentation, we're here to talk about the 9th chapter in the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. And in the 9th chapter, it's called generosity. Well, we're going to talk about generosity. And David, why don't you put that first poll up?
Okay. Let me find it. Sorry.
That's okay. It's a true or false question. Vampire bats exhibit generosity. True or false? Well, one person thought it was true. Maybe many thought that it was a trick question. There's you talk about the educator term for vampire bats exhibiting generosity, and that term is anthropomorphism. Had to look it up, pronounce it 3 times, at least 3 times, just so I could say it right. What is anthropomorphism? It is attributing human traits to animals. And a couple of examples that we were just talking about. Our dog smiling, right? That's anthropomorphism. It's simply saying it's attributing a human trait to an animal. So most people, they're about 50-50. They weren't sure that a vampire bat could possibly exhibit generosity. But here's the thing. Generosity has its roots not just in our individual development, but also in our biology and our evolutionary history. Bees, birds, vampire bats, rats, chimpanzees all exhibit forms of generosity, or in a broad term, pro-social behavior. In other words, this would be the communicator term, an act that benefits others. So when we see generosity across species, it suggests that generosity maybe an evolutionary adaptation that has helped to promote the survival of these species and our own. And I think we can end the poll. Nobody was really sure of the answer, but you could go to the next slide. Yes, the answer is yes, that certain studies have shown that vampire bats and others exhibit certain traits, human traits, that we attribute to animals as generosity. So you could go to the next slide and we'll just recap what we're going to cover today. So your candle loses nothing when it lights another. And we're going to talk about these 5 elements of generosity that John Maxwell discusses in this chapter. Be grateful for whatever you have. Put people first. Don't allow your desire for possessions to control you. Regard money as a resource, and develop the habit of giving. So let's go to the next slide. That's a gratitude jar. So when we talk about being grateful for whatever you have, starting today or tomorrow, label a jar or a can or your diary, a journal, gratitude. And make a daily entry about something that you are grateful for. The slide talks about little notes that somebody might put in there. I'm grateful for my health, your family, having enough money to pay your bills. And go back later, anytime later, and look again at the things that you wrote. And I'd like to suggest, and we'll do this as a running chat, just put something in the chat that you're grateful for. I would write, well, I'm grateful to be able to connect with all of you because I feel that way. I sincerely appreciate it. And the term gratitude is the term it means thanks and appreciation. So it's like a warm feeling you get when you remember that someone told you to drop your 80s hairstyle and get with the new millennium already, like your mullet or your big hair, depending on who you are. So the word gratitude rhymes with attitude, and we've heard that term before, develop an attitude of gratitude. It comes from the Latin word gratis, which means thankful or pleasing. And when you feel gratitude, you're pleased by what someone did for you, but you're also pleased by the results. Indebtedness, it's unlike the term indebtedness, where you're not anxious about having to pay it back, but it's still great to tell the recipient of your gratitude how much they mean to you. One thing that we implemented in Leadership Miller County this year was thank you notes. Just simple. We asked each session for the folks to write a thank you note to someone. It doesn't have to be the presenters of the day, to someone they know made a difference in their life. And just taking a moment to let someone know they made a difference in your life can be valuable to you and to them. As we know, money and success can bring a temporary boost to our spirits. But to achieve a lasting happiness, we want folks to develop an attitude of gratitude that is focused on compassion for yourself and for others. Have you got that next poll, David? It's a quick one.
Yes, let me pull it up.
All right. She's grateful for quarantine. That's a good thing. I'm grateful for the solitude. Can volunteering make you healthy? Question or not? You give folks a minute. Most people are going to say yes. Because can make you feel healthy, right? It doesn't make you healthy. It just makes you feel healthy.
I think everybody seems to be buying into that idea that volunteering can make you feel healthy. Here's your results.
And very quickly, the Corporation for National and Community Service reported that those who volunteer for 100 hours per year are 1/3 less likely to report bad health in comparison to those who don't volunteer. And some of the benefits include lower blood pressure, lower rates of mortality. Some would say that putting others first puts yourself second. Does anybody buy into that? Interesting question. Let's go to the next slide and let's say that we all agree that volunteering can make you healthy. So the second element was putting people first. I think, yeah. And a true spirit of generosity does require putting people first. In the context of leadership, I thought this was significant, a significant message. Your gifts are not about you. Leadership is not about you. Your purpose is not about you. And the point of that is when we talk about putting others, it's like putting others first means putting yourself second. Well, that's something that for personal growth, you might have to realize is something that you have to do. But basically, a leader does not necessarily put themselves first in any context. To show true leadership, we have to understand that it's not about us. Your gifts are not about us. Leadership is not about us. Your purpose is not about us. When we talk about a significant life, what we want to say is our hearts desire significance because significance lasts forever. Possessions are temporary. They perish, they spoil, they fade. And most of them spoil by design, planned obsolescence. We know that, right? Well, let's go to the next slide.
Oops, I thought you said poll.
That's okay. Let's do that one because I do have that in there. Does volunteering lower the risk of dementia? And most of us think it does, but how is that possible, right?
Let's see, you've got had about 70% vote here. We'll look at the results.
That's excellent. And that's an excellent answer. Well, they did a study by the University of Calgary, and they tracked 1,001 Swedish citizens over 5 years. And they monitored them for dementia or cognitive problems, as the case may be. And one of the things I do is I work with Alzheimer's education. So I'm very familiar with this umbrella term of dementia. And basically they looked at 3 groups. The first group is individuals who consistently volunteered for at least 1 hour per week. They did it consistently. The second group, They sporadically volunteered. Every once in a while they volunteered. The third group didn't volunteer at all. What the research results were was that people who did volunteer work for at least 1 hour a week regularly were 2.5 times less likely to develop dementia than the seniors who didn't volunteer.
Wow.
And they defined this, and you could take that poll down. They defined this as an activity done out of free will for no monetary compensation. And the activity had to benefit others who are not your core family. For example, helping at a church, a school, a library, a homeless shelter, or some other sort of charity organization. But to go a little further into the survey before we go on, the retirees who only volunteered sporadically didn't receive any benefits to cognitive health. For that group, there were no differences between the group that never volunteers. So there are positive consequences of generosity for the giver. When you give your social support, your time, your effort, or your goods, it is associated with better overall health in older adults and with delayed mortality. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Who remembers Scrooge McDuck from our old cartoon days?
Oh, yes.
We all remember Scrooge. When the subject matter is don't allow your desires for possessions to control you, it's easy to think of Scrooge McDuck or the character that he was based on from the Dickens story, A Christmas Carol. And we've seen that Dickens story repeated over and over again in different versions. But basically, the character was Ebenezer Scrooge. And Ebenezer Scrooge was a true miser. He lived an entirely self-contained life. Not even the cold weather affected him. Remember, he wouldn't put the coal in the stove to help Bob Cratchit warm up when he was working.
Are you watching?
My leadership conference.
Oh, cool.
So metaphorically, that meant that Scrooge had a cold heart. His desire for possessions controlled him. In the actual story, his fiancée explained why she was going to break up with him. Over the years, Scrooge had changed since they fell in love, and she understood that Scrooge desired wealth to protect himself from the poverty that he once knew. But she also knew that he only cared about money, and he no longer even cared about her. So she granted him the freedom, in her kind way, to be alone with his one true love, which was money. We don't want money to be the reason that we go to work every day. And I like what you said, do your giving while you're living. Let's go on to the next slide. Regard money as a resource. When one lives attached to money, according to Pope Francis, pride or power, it is impossible to be truly happy. And we know that since the day we were born, we've been told something different. We've been told that possessions equal joy. If you watch those commercials every day and those messages from advertising that bombard us all the time, possessions equal joy. We need that flat screen TV. We need a better computer. We need a new iPhone. Is that going to make us happier? And because we've heard that message so many times and from so many angles, we begin to believe it. As a result, we spend our lives working long hours to make good money so we can buy nice stuff, right? But our lives are important, and I think that's the message today. Our heart and soul makes us valuable. Don't sacrifice your important role in this world by settling for possessions that can be purchased with a card of plastic. In the book, one of the classic millionaires from over 100 years ago, J.D. Rockefeller, says none of the money that he made him happy. And our happiness is found in the invisible things of life: love, hope, peace, relationships. And you can't buy that at the department store. So we'll move on to the next slide.
All right.
And what I'm going to suggest is, and what Maxwell suggests, I can't take credit for this, to develop the habit of giving. Donate your time. We know that charitable organizations survive only through the efforts of volunteers. They rely on volunteers. Donate your skills. You don't have to give money. Donate what you know how to do. Garden, right? Help people understand how to properly, feed your animals or take care of something in your family. You could give blood. Donate your stuff. And I was looking at that and I thought that would have been a great opportunity for a George Carlin activity about stuff. But you can look that up later and enjoy it yourself. He's excellent at talking about our stuff and how we need a bigger house to hold our stuff. Let go of your stuff. Organize a drive like a blood drive or a fundraiser, something like that, to raise funds to benefit something. And we see generosity in many different forms, like charitable donations, formal volunteering, maybe just helping a stranger or caring for a spouse or a child. What these have in common is that they involve giving good things to others freely and abundantly. And that's the definition of generosity according to the University of Notre Dame's Science of Generosity project. When people are generous, people and sometimes animals, right? Vampire bats prioritize the needs of others, often above their own needs. I'm keeping an eye on the time. So let's go on to the next slide. So bringing it home, you've not lived, and this is a quote from the book, you've not lived today until you've done something for someone who can never repay you. I remember that was a lesson taught by Alan Sullivan, who talked to our leadership in Miller County. In fact, he talked a lot about these particular items. Give something away, something that maybe you care about that is really important to you, and give it away to someone who can benefit from it. That's one way to show true generosity. Put your money to work. Don't just keep it in that box. You know it's not going to do you any good when you're gone. This is an opportunity. If you have worked all your life for money, now put your money to work and give it back. Find a way that it can benefit our world and our community. Here's another thing. Find someone to mentor. Share your skills. Share your knowledge. And this was one thing that Alan Sullivan talked about. He found a mentor who really helped him to work through issues that he that we're nagging at him, and don't be afraid to mentor a young person who's just getting started, who you can tell has a lot of potential, or even an old person. You can mentor mature people as well, but even an older person who could benefit from some of the things that we know. Share your knowledge. Don't keep your knowledge. Share it. And let's go to the last slide.
Okay. Trish, I saw a video today from John Maxwell talking about how generosity is really about adding value to others. And he tries to end each day or begin each day with thinking about who am I going to add value to today? And that kind of goes along with your points there. Generosity is not always just money. Other ways, are you giving freely of your time or resources or things that add value to other people? Are you breathing that into other people?
Yeah, exactly. And I completely agree with this, because as I went through this, I thought, oh, this is kind of a narrow topic. No, it isn't. In this last scenario, all that is not given is lost. And what I love about this quote is, if you look it up, you will find it's attributed to Mother Teresa and many other people. So it's meaningful across the spectrum. What it really means is it's your opportunity to share what you know, as you say, David, and what John Maxwell says, or what you've learned, or what you have, and give it away. Because if you keep it, you're going to lose it. And so I think I'll end with that, is that our life is far too valuable to waste chasing material possessions. Go ahead. So here we go. Last question of the day. How do you give? And that was the last thing that I asked, is that we have the opportunity. We can give our resources. We can give our time. We can give our money. A lot of us who do volunteering, that's what we're giving, is our time. And it's rewarding. It keeps us healthy, right?
Yes. A generous person's always sowing seeds. They're not focused on the harvest. They're focused on the seed. I mean, the harvest will come if you plant seeds, but a
Right.
generous person is really focused on sowing those seeds.
And I am with you on that. And somebody said all of the above, and I agree with that as well. So with that, if there's any other folks who want to jump in, but thank you for listening today. And I want to thank all of you again for this opportunity to talk to you. It's very meaningful to me. I appreciate it greatly.
Looks like a majority of our poll takers give with time, but it's spread across the spectrum there. And they've given at least 30 minutes to get together with us to talk about this indispensable quality. And Patricia, thank you for doing that, and the time you spent in delving into that a little deeper. I appreciate that. Our topic on Monday is initiative. So take the initiative now to mark your calendar to join us for chapter 10 on the topic of initiative. You won't want to miss that. We'll stay on for a few minutes in case you have questions or want to visit further. We're not making you get off yet, especially if you have questions. But otherwise, thank you, Patricia, for your presentation today.
Thank you, David. I'm kind of going back over the chat as we go. Most people are thankful for their family.
Yeah, a lot of good comments today in the chat.
Yeah, it is. It helps to go back and think about our life and what adds value to our lives.
I think sometimes people get a little goosey about talking about generosity because they think you're after their money.
Yeah.
But generosity it has nothing to do with income, really. It has everything to do with how you think.
It really does.
About others, especially.
Yeah, it It is interesting because it's just like I say, you know, there's two sides to that where they think you're giving money because you don't want to give your time, right? Or to cover for something that maybe you did wrong in the past. Well, you know, if it's a way of improving someone's lives, I say go for it.